Hey friends, welcome back to Plumbing with Tim. Today's video, we're at a residential home and we are going to look at a faucet that won't stop dripping. Let's go. Behind me is the subject. As you can see over my shoulder there, it is an old Delta faucet. And at this point in the game, most people be like, it's old, tear it out, Tim, put something new into it. I have faith in this old faucet. We're going to take it apart and we're going to try to make some repairs to it. Let's go. Because it is an old faucet, chances are that that handle and that little bonnet nut are all locked up, and a lot of times you're going to have to use some sort of lubrication on there first. Let's give it a try before we do any of that stuff. Ah, she's moving. There we go. Down in there are a lot of little parts and pieces. Let me show you the best way to get this out. Our little washers and seats. I got a lot of corrosion, so we got a lot of cleaning up to do on this stuff. Let's pluck those out first. So here are the components that came out of that old Delta faucet, single handle. We got that bonnet nut, as well as the mixer ball, the retainer here. We're going to talk about that in a second, as well as our seats and our springs that are right there. If you look closely, like it's got a lot of corrosion and stuff on there. I suppose you could probably take some sandcloth or whatever and clean that up, but look real closely on here. Look how that brass is all eaten up on there. Yeah, that's no good. That's going to cause a problem for this thing to leak. All right, so remember that. That's a little locking trough on there, and I'll show what I'm talking about. I've got new replacements parts. Let's take a look at them. As you see here, I have a replacement kit for Delta by Delta. Take a look at these numbers, write them down, RP3614A. Now, this kit includes not just for a kitchen faucet, but see that flat slotted? Now look at what I took out of it. It's more of a diamond shape. It's also got the diamond shape in there. So it's a dual kit where you can actually use this to replace parts for a tub shower or for a kitchen faucet. Let's go ahead and open this back up. First, before we open that kit up there, this is that ball. This is that little mixer ball and stuff. What makes this unique is it's got that little trough. It's a little retention trough. The replacement is for Delta by Delta. It's not as heavy duty anymore. And that number is Delta RP70-3D. So those are the numbers. And you can see it's got the little retention trough on there. Okay, it's a little mixer in there. So we're going to take both of these inside, open them up. And remember, this diamond shape is for a faucet. If you're working with the tub shower, it would be the straight edge piece like that. I'll see you inside. Real quick before we put this faucet back together, let's go down here to where the valve body is. We took all the parts out of, get the water out of there, get it all cleaned up before we put our seats and springs back in there. We happen to have some green corrosion around here. Sorry, the lighting's so bad. We're going to get rid of that right there on that edge. Not too much. We don't want to put a gouge in here and create a void causing a leak and stuff, but we want that nice and cleaned up before we put any parts in there. There you go, there's the kit. This is one for the faucet, and that one's for a tub shower valve, neoprene seats, as well as springs, and a couple extra O-rings, which we'll put away for another rainy day. Now, while installing these seats and springs, you want to take these springs, you can see, look, there's a bigger edge on one end, you'll see. You want to put the bigger end of the spring down in the hole, okay, with the neoprene seat over top of it. Like that. That's how you want to see this thing sitting down inside the valve. And take our cupped seat and we're going to slide it up a pick, kind of like that. And we're going to take our smaller end of our spring, slide it up right behind it. So we're kind of looking like that, and down in the hole we go. There it goes. Kind of jimmy it into place. There it goes, so it's kind of close to where it wants to be, right there. Now I'm going to take the end of this pick and I'm going to push it down in there with the handle and pop it into place. See that? Nice and seated. Nice and easy. Let's get it down there where it needs to be. We'll pull that pick out. In the right area, if you can see it there, and get the end of our pick, the handle, and pop it back down into place. See that? Both of them seated real nice down in their spot. Pow. Okay, we're going to take this insert piece, the one for the faucet. It's got a piece of plastic in there. We're going to pop it out of place like that. Let me get it out of here. There it is, just like that. But it's got a piece of rubber on there. It held onto it. We're going to set back into place inside of here. Just like that. Can you see that? There we go. Let me show you some interesting little things in here. This can only go in one way and one way only. We're going to take this mixer ball and we're going to take a razor knife. We're going to cut it open and get that product out. Whoops. There it is, right there. Let me show you about this thing first, because it's going to be the next thing that goes in back to the valve body on the faucet. Look closely, look. There's a little pin. Let me get my pick and I'll show you. There's a little pin right there. See that little pin? All right. Pay attention to it. On the opposite side, there's a little slot right there. Okay, so that means that that little retainer with the ball can only go in here one way. Let me show you. A little pin that you saw is that little groove that's in that ball. See that little groove? It's got to sit with that pin inside of there. Now let's go back to that little cover plate that goes on there. Take a look at this really close if you can. It's got a little notch. See it? There's a little notch. That notch, once it goes down into place, has to slide into that little slot. Let me show you how it's done. First things first, we're going to take that little mixer. We're going to slide it up the bottom end of that little plate, kind of like this. Now we've got to line up this little trough with the pin, and we've got to line up that little groove with the slot. There's a little mixer. There's that little slot. There's a little pin down in here. Look, I got it locked in the pin. I don't know if you can see it down there. See that? So it can't go anywhere else. It's got to sit like that. There's that little notch right there. It's got to go into that little groove right there. Nice and easy. We'll slide this over the top of it. Let's see if we can match that slot with the groove. Just like that. Now we got to apply pressure and push this whole thing downwards so it seats. Something like that. Because I do care about the next plumber, because the next plumber that comes here is probably going to be me. Inside of this little collar nut, this bonnet nut, I'm going to take some trusty old grease. We're going to put it inside the threads. This way, if someone's got to service this faucet again in its lifetime, it'll be a lot easier to take this thing out instead of have to replace the faucet. Now we set this down in place over top that assembly that we took off in the first place and just reassemble new parts to. Here we go. Now make sure that this is seated down there all the way. Remember, the mixer's got to have that pin in that little trough, and the top plate has to have that little notch inside of the groove there. Here comes our little bonnet nut. Nice and easy. You get it started, that grease makes it like butter. There we go. Now, if you don't have this seated, this whole thing's going to turn. You'll have to take and pop it all back up and line the pins up as well as the notches. But we've got it going. Let's go ahead with a pair of channel locks and just seat that down. We'll get the handle back on, water back on, and see and check for leaks. Yeah, let's get that on there. There we go. Nice and easy. Let's get this little set screw. That's for Allen wrench head on there. Tighten it down real good so it's not going to come back out. Let's get the water on and see if we got any leak. Oh, me. There we go. Nice and easy. Let's get the water back on. There's the other one. Okay. This is smooth as butter, just as new as the day it was made, and it's probably 30 years old. No leaks. Shut it off, make sure there's no drips. Quick before we wrap this up, I noticed over the years somebody had taken the aerator off the end of this faucet because I'm a nice guy. I got a new one. Let's go ahead and put it on there. This way this faucet, being 30 years old or whatever, is going to operate smooth as glass like the day that it was put in. Slick. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching. Bringing new life to an old Delta faucet. Folks, listen, the stuff they're making these days is twice the price, and it doesn't have anything on these old faucets. These 30-year-old faucets, they'll last you as long as you get parts for them and take care of them and stuff. They're built a lot more. They're a lot more simple, all that other good stuff. And you can find parts to them. If you need to, go back in the video. I listed those parts numbers and stuff, so Delta does make those. You can probably order them online. Go to a local hardware store, maybe a plumbing supply company or something like that. Got any comments, questions, leave them down below, and don't forget to keep plumbing.